Listen closely, because this is the switch most people never flip. The world is not fair. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop playing the role you were trained to play, the agreeable extra in someone else's story, and start becoming the main character of your own. While you're watching this, someone with fewer skills is taking the job you want. Someone who's not as smart as you is commanding more respect. Someone softer than you is calling shots you should be calling. Not because they're better, because they understand how people actually work. You were coached to be nice, while others learned to be strategic. You were told to wait your turn, while others learned to set the terms. You were told the right thing would be recognized on its own. Meanwhile, those who study power, presence, and psychology are shaping how the right thing is defined. That's why it feels like the game is rigged. It is. But not against everyone. Only against people who cling to imaginary rules, pray to the altar of fairness, and try to reason with players who only respect leverage. 5 centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli sat in the middle of cutthroat politics and watched the same dynamic play out. Kingdom rose and fell, not simply because of virtue or talent, but because a handful of people understood human nature more clearly than the rest. He didn't write a bedtime story, he wrote an operating manual. That manual still works because people still work the same way. I'm going to walk you through 8 dark psychological principles that pull you out of invisibility and into influence. I'm not asking you to become cruel. I'm asking you to become sophisticated. Once you see how these levers move people, you can't unsee them. And once you can't unsee them, you can't comfortably play the victim anymore, because you'll know exactly which lever to pull and when. Before we dive in, plant a stake in the ground. Write this to yourself somewhere you'll see it. On your screen, in your notes, in your head if you have to. I refuse to be psychologically dominated by others. That's not a comment. That's a contract. It's the moment you shift from prey to strategist, from hoping to shaping. If you're ready to be dangerously confident, calm, precise, and respected, let's begin. Principle 1. Fair is the bait in the trap. The belief that life should be fair keeps good people stuck in waiting rooms, waiting for recognition, waiting for reciprocity, waiting for someone to notice their good intentions. Meanwhile, those who understand the environment take what's available. When you assume the world is fair, you default to predictable behavior. You over-explain, you over-give, you tolerate just a little disrespect because you don't want to be dramatic. That predictability is exactly what manipulators exploit. Take inventory. How many times did you give respect hoping it would be reciprocated, and it wasn't? How many times did you help someone just to be nice, and they treated it like a coupon they could keep redeeming? How many times did you wait for a turn that never came? That's not bad luck, that's training. You were trained to value appearing fair over being effective. The correction isn't to become cruel, it's to stop playing half measures. Weak pushback to strong personalities is gasoline on a fire. Soft boundaries with aggressive people teach them that your no is a maybe. Reasoning with self-interested players announces that you haven't recognized the game. Here's what power looks like in the real world. You don't convince people to treat you well. You make it expensive not to. You don't argue for your value. You design contexts where your value is obvious and scarce. You don't punish lightly and repeatedly. You respond decisively and then move on. The point isn't vengeance, it's calibration. People remember pain more than explanations. If you set a firm standard and couple it with real consequences once, you won't have to keep re-explaining yourself. So stop being fair with people who aren't fair to you. Start being consistent, strategic, and crystal clear about the cost of disrespect. You're not asking for special treatment. You're enforcing the minimum standard for access. Principle 2. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline. Most people hear ruthless and think tantrums, explosions, and intimidation. That's amateur hour. Real ruthlessness is ice-cold composure. It's refusing to let anyone else script your reactions. Emotional reactivity is a remote control. Whoever can press your buttons runs your day. Emotional discipline is cutting the wires. When someone embarrasses you publicly, the reactive response is to protest, justify, or trade insults. It feels good for 5 seconds and costs you status for 5 months. The disciplined response is chosen, not triggered. You ask one question: what response, if any, elevates me and diminishes the attack's credibility? Sometimes the best move is strategic silence. Treat the jab like background noise and let it die. Sometimes it's one crisp, factual correction that makes the attacker look sloppy without you looking heated. Sometimes it's a decisive action that repositions you above the conflict altogether. Think in phases. Take the hit, feel it, but don't act from it. Let emotions inform you. There's a boundary to reinforce. This person is signaling hostility. This audience is watching. And then choose a move that changes incentives. If you must deliver consequences, deliver them cleanly and once, then exit. Don't spar. Don't feed the soap opera. Finish the chapter and write the next one. The most powerful people you know almost never raise their voice. They don't scold. They don't debate at length. They demonstrate control by being unhookable. And when they do act, it's not because they're provoked. It's because the move serves their positioning. That's ruthlessness, not cruelty, clarity. Want to practice this? Audit your triggers. Identify the 3 recurring behaviors that yank you off center: public disrespect, last-minute cancellations, passive-aggressive jokes, whatever they are. Pre-decide your response for each one, not a speech, an action. If X happens again, then Y happens immediately. No theatrics, no warnings, just the system. When you feel the surge of emotion, you already know the move. Execute calmly and let your reputation do the talking. Principle 3. Respect beats being liked. Every single time. This one hurts people pleasers, but it's the linchpin. Likability is cheap. Respect is expensive. When people merely like you, they'll risk stepping on your toes because they assume you'll forgive and forget. When they respect you, they self-edit before they cross the line. You don't need fear. In fact, you don't want a fear-based dynamic. You want something stronger. The widespread understanding that mistreating you has real costs and treating you well has real upsides. Look at your world. Who gets deference? The endlessly agreeable, or the person whose presence changes the temperature of the room? Who does the group check with before big moves? The one who always nods along, or the one whose standards shape the plan? Shifting from likability to respect isn't about becoming abrasive. It's about switching the metric. Stop asking, will they like me if I do this? Start asking, does this choice increase or dilute my power? That reframing changes everything. You'll stop defaulting to yes. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who aren't owed an explanation. You'll stop trying to be everywhere and start being where your presence actually matters. In practice, this means you say, no, that doesn't work for me, without padding it with excuses. Not rude, final. You address disrespect in real time, not with a lecture by changing access, tone, or terms. You refuse to negotiate your baseline standards. Empathy. Yes. Entertainment of blatant boundary testing? No. You make decisions and allow others to adjust. You don't chase approval, you grant it. Let people compete for your green light. It's not arrogance, it's efficient leadership of your own life. When your approval becomes meaningful, people raise their game around you. Why this all feels dark, and why you should learn it anyway. You are told that learning influence is manipulative. Convenient story, told by people who benefit when you stay predictable, deferential, and conflict avoidant. The truth is, human groups always run on power and perception. Families, teams, companies, communities. The question is whether you'll be the one who navigates those currents consciously, or the one who gets swept along and calls it destiny. This isn't about abandoning kindness. It's about refusing to let kindness be used against you. It's about protecting your time, energy, and reputation so your kindness actually lands where it can do good. The alternative is a slow bleed of respect, opportunities, and self-trust. Training your presence before you open your mouth. Most people try to fix influence with more words. Start earlier. Long before anyone hears your arguments, they've already decided whether to take you seriously. Posture, eye contact, stillness, pacing, voice tone, these are not superficial. They're the first data points in the who. Who is this calculation every brain runs. If your body says maybe, your words have to work twice as hard. If your body says certain, your words ride momentum. Quick reset you can do today. Stand and sit like your spine has a job. Stillness reads as confidence. Fidgeting reads as need. Hold eye contact until you decide to break it, not the other way around. Replace filler with pauses. A beat of silence is more powerful than a river of justification. Speak in complete sentences. End them. Let the period land. None of this demands arrogance. It demands intention. You're training the room how to categorize you, important or ignorable, before content even arrives. Make the environment do the enforcement. Here's where your life gets easier. Instead of arguing with people about how they should treat you, let your systems do the talking. If someone chronically disrespects your time, reduce access. No announcement required. If someone treats your help like an entitlement, redirect it to people who show appreciation. If someone trashes your name, stop giving them proximity to your good name. The rule is simple: behavior, access. Positive behavior increases it. Negative behavior reduces it. You don't have to be punitive or loud. You just have to be consistent. People can argue with your feelings. They can't argue with their own outcomes. When they notice that one set of behaviors gets them invitations, responsiveness, and introductions, and another set gets them distance, delays, and closed doors, they adjust. Your authority stops being emotional and starts being structural. The quiet edge. And through it all, remember, the strongest current in the room is almost never the loudest voice. Real power is mostly silent. Talkers telegraph their moves, leak their insecurities, and need external validation to feel potent. Strategists observe, position, and act when it counts. You don't have to announce your standards. You embody them. You don't have to declare your boundaries. You enforce them once. You don't have to broadcast your plans. You materialize results. When you learn to be both fox and lion, cunning enough to spot traps, strong enough to discourage wolves, you stop getting pulled into circus acts that drain your stature. You become the person others find mysteriously hard to shake and strangely easy to respect. So, here's your first assignment before part 2. Stop negotiating with fair. Replace the wish for fairness with the design of leverage. Tighten your emotional discipline. No drama, only decisions. Trade likability points for respect points by making a few clean, firm moves this week. One no, one boundary enforced in real time, one access shift tied to behavior. And most importantly, let your systems, not your speeches, teach people what it takes to get and keep your attention. When you're ready, we'll move into decisive action, perception management, and narrative control, the tools that turn quiet standards into visible authority. Principle 4. Decisive action creates psychological superiority. Here's where so many people sabotage themselves without even realizing it. They talk big, They warn. They threaten. But when it comes time to actually do something, their moves are soft, hesitant, or inconsistent. And every time that happens, their influence shrinks a little more. People stop taking them seriously because the pattern is obvious. All bark, no bite. The truth is this: power isn't built on repetition. It's built on impact. You don't need to make 100 small moves that no one remembers. You need to make a handful of decisive moves that leave a permanent impression. Machiavelli said it simply: if an injury has to be done, it should be so severe that his vengeance need not be feared. Translation: if you're going to act, don't act halfway. Do it in a way that closes the book, not in a way that leaves room for resentment, back and forth drama, or constant testing. Think about someone in your circle who constantly disrespects you. Maybe they interrupt you, dismiss your input, or make sly jokes at your expense. Most people handle this the weak way. They complain, they sulk, they vent to others. They give endless warnings. And guess what? The disrespect continues because the behavior has no real cost. The decisive way looks different. You collect evidence in silence. You wait. And then you make one strong move that resets the dynamic permanently. Maybe you call them out publicly in a moment that leaves them embarrassed. Maybe you exclude them from something valuable to them. Maybe you shift group dynamics so that their opinion holds less weight. The point is not revenge. The point is to send a clear message. This line isn't just defended, it's reinforced. One action, when it's memorable and unmistakable, does more for your reputation than 50 polite requests ever could. People respect those who follow through. They fear those who act without hesitation. And they remember those who draw lines in permanent ink. Stop scattering your power in 100 minor corrections. Consolidate it into rare but decisive actions that establish your credibility for good. Principle 5. Perception management is reality control. Here's where the game turns subtle. You may think your character, your competence, and your hard work should speak for themselves. But here's the bitter truth. They don't. People are too busy, too distracted, too self-absorbed to investigate the depths of who you are. They rely on shortcuts, impressions, and stories. Which means this: how you appear is who you are in their minds. Machiavelli spelled it out. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. So, let me ask you, what does your appearance communicate before you even open your mouth? Do you walk into a room with presence, or do you fade into the wallpaper? Do you speak with weight and certainty, or do you hedge with every word? Do your clothes, posture, and tone signal authority, or do they broadcast uncertainty? This isn't about being fake. It's about deciding which of your authentic qualities deserve the spotlight. Because if you don't manage perception, others will do it for you, and rarely in your favor. Let's make it practical. If you want to be seen as a leader, you can't slouch, mumble, and wait to be noticed. You walk in upright, make eye contact, and own your space before saying a word. If you want to be respected, you can't give long-winded explanations for every decision. You make the decision, you state it, and you let others adapt. If you want to project competence, you can't hide your wins and hope people discover them. You showcase them strategically, enough for people to associate you with results, not excuses. Perception is leverage, and reputation is currency. Cultivate both, or be left at the mercy of those who do. Principle 6. Narrative control is psychological warfare. This principle is advanced, but it's where true influence lives. The facts of what happens matter, but the story about what happens matters more. Every situation, every conflict, every decision can be framed in different ways. Was it bold leadership or reckless arrogance? Was it confidence or selfishness? Was it strength or aggression. The person who tells the story first, and tells it persuasively, decides which interpretation sticks. Think about every scandal, conflict, or falling out you've ever seen. Who usually wins in public opinion? Not necessarily the one who was right. The one who framed the story better. The one who got their version out early, clearly, and confidently. Machiavelli knew this well. Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. People don't investigate the full truth. They consume the simplest story available. If you don't control the narrative, someone else will, and they'll write you into it as the villain, the fool, or the weakling. So here's what narrative control looks like in real life. When you make a hard choice that others might resist, frame it around principle and vision, not self-interest. When someone attacks you, don't just defend. Reframe their attack as proof of their insecurity, jealousy, or lack of credibility. When you succeed, tell the story in a way that highlights your strategy and discipline, not just luck or chance. When you fail, frame it as the price of ambition, the lesson that sharpened your edge. Example: you cut ties with a toxic friend. They spread the story that you're cold or selfish. If you let their framing take root, people may side with them. But if you tell your version first, I had to set boundaries because my energy and time were being drained by someone who refused reciprocity. You don't just protect your reputation, you elevate it. People now see you as someone with standards, not someone with cruelty. Same action, two different stories, two different outcomes. This is psychological warfare at the highest level. You're not just controlling your behavior, you're controlling how your behavior will be remembered. Always ask, what's the story here? What's the story my enemies will tell if I stay silent? And what's the story I can tell that strengthens my position while weakening theirs? The bridge between action, perception, and narrative. By now you can see the progression. Decisive action establishes credibility. Perception management builds your aura. Narrative control ensures your aura stays intact even when you're attacked. This is how psychological dominance compounds. It's not one trick, it's layers. Each layer reinforces the others until people start treating your presence as inevitable, because that's the goal. Not to scream, I'm powerful. Not to brag. Not to boast. Not to argue. The goal is to reach a point where your reputation walks into the room before you do. Where your image is already set, your story already told, your standards already known. Where people don't dare cross you because they've already learned the costs secondhand. That's when influence stops being something you chase and becomes something that flows to you naturally. But there are two more principles that elevate you even higher: systematic consequences and silent dominance. And once you understand those, you'll have the full arsenal for moving from invisible to untouchable. Principle 7. Systematic consequences create psychological authority. Here's where influence gets truly sophisticated. Up until now, we've talked about decisive actions, reputation, and narrative. But if you want sustainable power, power that doesn't rely on constant emotional energy, you need systems. Systems take you out of the emotional loop and make respect automatic. Here's the problem most people face. They react. They get angry when someone disrespects them. They complain when someone wastes their time. They argue when someone pushes boundaries. But all of this depends on emotions. And when your authority depends on emotions, other people can manipulate you. They can push your buttons, trigger your frustration, and bait you into looking weak. Systematic consequences fix this. Instead of threats, arguments, or feelings, you create a structure where actions naturally lead to outcomes. No warnings, no negotiations, just predictable consequences. Machiavelli himself warned, a wise ruler should rely on what is in his own control, not on what is in the control of others. This is exactly what systems do. They take power out of other people's hands and put it firmly in yours. So how do you do this? If someone constantly disrespects your time, showing up late, canceling last minute, you don't scold them. You simply stop including them. Invitations disappear. Access fades. If someone exploits your generosity, you don't guilt-trip them. You redirect your generosity to those who value it. The exploiter finds themselves cut off without you ever raising your voice. If someone ignores your boundaries, you don't plead for better treatment. You quietly enforce rules that protect you and make access conditional. The beauty of this system is that it feels impersonal. You're not punishing anyone. You're not emotional. You're simply running a program. People learn very quickly. Good behavior leads to more access. Bad behavior leads to less. And because it's systematic, it feels inevitable. This is how psychological authority is built. Not through intimidation, not through fear, not through endless explanations, but through an environment where people train themselves to treat you better, because the structure you've built leaves them no other option. Here's the deeper truth. Systems don't just protect your boundaries, they also elevate your reputation. People begin to see you as someone with order, with discipline, with unshakable standards. Someone who doesn't bend with the wind, but stands firm and consistent. And in a chaotic world, that kind of stability is magnetic. Think about it. Who do you respect more? The person who constantly flips between anger and forgiveness, or the person whose standards are consistent, predictable, and never compromised? If you want authority that lasts, create systems where people teach themselves how to treat you. Principle 8. Silent dominance is ultimate power. Now we arrive at the pinnacle. All the previous principles, decisive action, perception, narrative, systems, they're powerful. But silent dominance is what makes your influence untouchable. Why? Because the loudest people in the room are rarely the most dangerous. They talk, they brag, they posture, they try to convince everyone how tough or smart they are. But true power doesn't need to shout. True power is felt without being announced. Machiavelli captured this perfectly. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Silent dominance is about blending both. The cunning of the fox to avoid traps, and the strength of the lion to command respect. But most importantly, it's about never telegraphing your next move. Here's what it looks like in practice. You observe more than you speak. While others rush to prove themselves, you gather information. You position yourself quietly. You build alliances, strengthen connections, and shift dynamics without announcing your intentions. You undermine opponents subtly in ways that feel natural and inevitable. By the time they realize what's happening, their influence has already shrunk. You let your results do the talking. People see the outcome. You rise, they fall, and they can't pinpoint how it happened. The silent strategist doesn't get baited into drama. They don't make threats. They don't advertise their plans. They simply move, and the room adjusts. Think about the most powerful people you've ever met. Did they brag about their influence? Did they constantly remind you of their authority? No, you just felt it. In the pauses, in the way they carried themselves, in the way others treated them. Their dominance was unspoken but undeniable. That's the final level. When your power doesn't come from what you say, but from what others already believe about you. Why silence outperforms noise. Noise draws attention, but it also draws resistance. The more loudly you announce your power, the more people plot to test it. Silent dominance works differently. It creates a sense of inevitability. People can't resist what they can't fully see. They can't defend against moves they don't notice until it's too late. It's like a chess master playing 10 moves ahead while the opponent is still thinking about pawns. By the time they realize the game you're playing, they're already cornered. That's the essence of silent dominance. Power that doesn't need recognition to be effective. Influence that doesn't need announcement to be real. presence that speaks louder than any declaration ever could, bringing it all together. So let's step back. We've covered the 8 principles. 1. Fairness is a trap. 2. Ruthlessness is emotional discipline. 3. Respect beats being liked. 4. Decisive action builds credibility. 5. Perception management controls reality. 6. Narrative control wins psychological warfare. 7. Systematic consequences create authority. 8. Silent dominance makes power untouchable. These aren't just tricks, they're a framework. Together, they shift you from being manipulated to being magnetic, from being overlooked to being unavoidable, from being nice to being respected. And once you've internalized them, something big changes. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of unfairness, and you start seeing yourself as a strategist in a world that runs on human psychology. Because here's the final truth. The people who already use these principles don't want you to know them. They want you predictable. They want you believing in fairness. They want you second-guessing yourself while they move with precision. But now you know. Now that you've seen all 8 principles, let's step back and talk about what they really mean. Because it's not just a set of tactics, it's a shift in identity. A shift in how you see yourself and how others experience you. Up until now, you may have been living as the good one. Smart, capable, well-intentioned, but invisible. You've probably felt the sting of being overlooked while louder, less capable people took the rewards. You've probably watched manipulators get ahead, liars attract attention, and shallow charmers win loyalty. And you've probably wondered, why not me? The answer is brutal but freeing. The world doesn't reward intelligence, kindness, or effort in themselves. It rewards leverage. It rewards presence. It rewards those who understand that human psychology is the real game being played. Machiavelli saw this in Renaissance Italy. But you see it every day in your workplace, your social circles, even your family. The ones who rise aren't necessarily the best. They're the ones who understand how people work and use it without apology. The invisible man problem. Let's be honest, being invisible as hell is... You can have the right answers and no one listens. You can be loyal and still get abandoned. You can work harder than anyone and still be overlooked. The invisible man is competent but unheard, kind but unrespected, present but unacknowledged. That invisibility doesn't just cost opportunities, it corrodes your self-worth. You start wondering if maybe you're not good enough, when in reality you've just been playing by rules that no longer exist. The liberating destruction of fairness. When you finally accept that fairness isn't real, that it was a story sold to keep you compliant, you break free. You stop waiting for people to notice your worth. You stop expecting reciprocity from those who only take. You stop believing the myth that good intentions will carry you. This realization hurts. It destroys the world you thought you lived in. But once that old worldview shatters, a better one emerges. One where you're no longer begging for scraps of respect, but claiming your rightful place with clarity and strength. Predator mindset versus victim mindset. At the core, this entire transformation is about one fundamental shift. From victim to predator. That doesn't mean cruelty. It means orientation. Victims wait. Victims explain. Victims hope. Predators act. Predators decide. Predators shape the environment so that it serves them. This isn't about becoming heartless. It's about becoming sovereign. Because here's the irony. Once you stop expecting fairness, you stop resenting unfairness. You stop wasting energy on why me, and start focusing on what move creates leverage here. That's freedom. From nice to respected. Think about the difference. The nice person says yes when they want to say no, and then resents it. The respected person says no clearly, and everyone adapts. The nice person tolerates disrespect, hoping it will stop. The respected person shuts it down once, decisively. The nice person tries to be everywhere, included in everything. The respected person chooses where they invest their presence, and their absence becomes just as powerful as their presence. Respect is the currency of power, and it doesn't come from trying harder to please. It comes from mastering yourself and your environment so thoroughly that people can't ignore you. Why these principles feel dangerous? Let's address the discomfort. Maybe you're thinking, but isn't this manipulative? Isn't this dark? That's exactly what people who benefit from your naivety want you to believe. They tell you power is bad, so you'll stay powerless. They tell you strategy is manipulative, so you'll stay predictable. But think about it. What's more manipulative? Using these principles consciously to protect yourself and build a life on your terms, or refusing to use them while allowing others to control you with the very same tools. Ignorance doesn't protect you from manipulation. It just makes you the easiest target. The battlefield of daily life. You may not realize it, but you're already in a war of perception and influence every single day. In meetings, in friendships, in negotiations, in relationships, someone is positioning, someone is framing, someone is quietly shaping outcomes. If you're not playing the game, you're the piece being moved. Right now, while you're watching this, someone less talented but more ruthless is building the reputation, the network, and the influence you want. They're not waiting for fairness. They're not apologizing for being strategic. They're claiming what's available. And every day you stay nice but naive. You're handing them the keys to doors you'll never walk through. The cost of not evolving. If you ignore these principles, what happens? More of the same. More overlooked contributions. More disrespect that goes unchecked. More manipulative people using your kindness as a weakness. More resentment building inside you as others advance while you stay stuck. That's the cost of clinging to the myth of fairness. It's not just lost opportunities. It's a slow erosion of your power, your presence, and your confidence. The reward of mastery. But if you embrace these principles, if you shift from victim to strategist, everything changes. People start treating you differently. They pause before disrespecting you. They seek your approval instead of the other way around. They talk about you with respect because you've trained them through actions, perception, narrative, and systems that your presence is valuable and your boundaries are real. And the best part? You won't need to announce it. You won't need to constantly fight for recognition. Your influence will be felt quietly, consistently, and powerfully. Why silence and discipline make you untouchable. The final layer is this: discipline and silence. Anyone can get angry. Anyone can complain. Anyone can brag. But the rare person, the person others fear and respect, is the one who can stay composed under pressure, act strategically instead of emotionally, and move in silence until their results speak louder than any declaration. That's the kind of presence that turns you from just another nice person into someone unforgettable, someone impossible to ignore, someone dangerous in the best possible way. The transformation is a choice, and now you face the choice. Do you stay the same, nice, well-intentioned, invisible? Or do you step into the dangerous clarity of someone who understands and uses human psychology? Do you keep waiting for fairness, or do you start creating outcomes? Every day you hesitate, someone else is making the decision for you. Every day you stay naive, someone more ruthless is building the respect and influence you crave. The choice is brutal, but it's simple. Remain predictable prey, or become strategically formidable. So here we are, the end of this path, and the beginning of another. You've seen the principles, you've felt the shift. Now the real question is this: what will you do with it? Because knowing the truth changes everything. Once you've seen the machinery of human psychology, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending that fairness is real, that kindness alone is enough, or that effort will always be recognized. That illusion is gone. The world doesn't reward victims. It doesn't reward good hearts without strong presence. It doesn't care about your intelligence if you lack influence. What it rewards is leverage, discipline, strategy, and psychological dominance. The battlefield of influence. Think about what's happening right now in your life. While you're absorbing these lessons, someone else is already applying them. Someone is exploiting the fairness trap, manipulating predictable people who still think good intentions matter more than leverage. Someone is climbing over others who refuse to adapt. And every day you delay, they're moving further ahead. You've been told that adopting these principles makes you bad. That's exactly what those in power want you to believe. They want you naive. They want you predictable. They want you so afraid of being called ruthless that you never protect yourself, never advance, never claim what you're capable of. The brutal choice. But now the choice is yours. You can remain where you are, overlooked, disrespected, endlessly frustrated. Or you can step into the role you were meant to play, someone who understands the rules of the game, someone who operates with strategy instead of hope, someone who builds a life of real authority and undeniable respect. Victim or strategist, prey or predator, invisible or impossible to ignore. Your declaration. If you're ready for that shift, then anchor it right now. Say it, write it, claim it. I refuse to be psychologically dominated by others. That's more than a phrase. It's a new operating system. It's the point where you stop waiting and start shaping. It's the moment you claim sovereignty over your presence, your respect, and your influence. What mastery looks like in action. Let's bring this down to earth. Tomorrow, when someone tests your boundary, you don't argue. You enforce it once and move on. When someone tries to bait you emotionally, you don't react. You pause, assess, and respond strategically, or not at all. When opportunities come, you don't beg to be included. You decide which ones are worthy of you. And when someone attempts to frame you in a story that weakens you, you seize control of the narrative and flip it in your favor. Every move is deliberate. Every decision is calibrated. And the more you do it, the more others adapt to you. The quiet empire. Remember, the most dangerous presence is not the loudest voice in the room. It's the one who moves quietly, decisively, and with results that can't be ignored. Build your influence in silence. Let your reputation grow louder than your words. Position yourself like a fox, strike like a lion, and never telegraph your next move. That's how you become untouchable. That's how you stop playing fair and start playing to win. The final call. If these truths have unsettled you, good. That means they hit where you've been asleep. If they've awakened something in you, even better. That means you're ready. But don't just nod along. Don't just agree in theory. Step into it. Practice it. Live it. Like this video, if you're done playing by rules that keep you small, share it with someone who needs to wake up from the trap of fairness. Subscribe, because this is only the beginning. These lessons are the foundation of a transformation that takes you from invisible to magnetic, from naive to formidable, from weak to dangerously confident. And remember what you declared. I refuse to be psychologically dominated by others. Now stop refusing and start dominating. The choice is yours, but choose quickly because while you're hesitating, others are already deciding what to do with you.